So, some more thoughts about the whole manifestation thing and so on. Um, the main focus of everything is to change your internal subconscious programming, right? And I like to get these terms that people use all the time and try to think, okay, what does this mean? What does this imply? Like, what's your unconscious, subconscious programming? What is that? How does that translate into other things that I've noticed, other things that we can see in our day-to-day experience? And I think the whole point of everything, of personal change, personal growth, manifestation techniques or whatever, it's to change yourself internally so that your programs. That's why uh, a lot of these people talk about changing your identity, and Neville talked about that, and others, because that's the source. If you change that, which is your most internal representations, you're going to start seeing a change in the way you interact with the world, and in ways that sometimes you don't even notice, because it becomes so internalized and so automatic that it just happens, and then it seems like magic. And then you can go on and start using metaphors about energy and about whatever you want, because it does seem like magic. It's like stuff that's happening without you even realize. Oh, you get these strange coincidences. It's not really coincidences. You've been placing yourself in situations that kind of make things happen in a certain way without you even realizing it. So to those of us who are more scientifically minded, but I'm still kind of pretty open-minded too. Um, so the whole point is changing your internal programming, your internal thought patterns, and our brains are pattern recognition machines. So it changes your reality, because you start focusing on different things in your reality, and you start then, because it's all about your brain needs those models and needs those files inside to tell it what to do, to tell you what to do. Where to focus your attention, um, what to do, how to feel in relation to certain things, and you pick those things up usually randomly, by your life experience. So you have a really shitty experience one day, or you get scared out of your wits, and it's like that fright, that strong emotional reaction is labeled as, okay, this is dangerous, this is something important. Okay, what's connected to this? And it's like everything that's connected to that specific situation gets labeled as potentially a sign that, okay, we're looking at something, this is a pattern that might be dangerous. Okay, so everything and that's how people get strong traumas, and what's the name of that other label people use? No, anyway. So you get this mental model created by a strong emotional response. Somebody scares the shit out of you, and you're like, oh my god, and then everything that's there in that moment gets configured into that model of things that are potentially dangerous. The smell of it, the sounds that you hear, anything there can set off the pattern. So it's little fragments of the pattern, little sensory inputs that might set off the whole thing, and then give you the appropriate response, which is be careful, run away, or react some way that would protect you personally. And so the two main ways that we can pick those things up, that we can change ourselves internally, are through strong emotional experiences like that one that I just described, or repetition. Being consistently exposed to certain combinations of elements in our environment will eventually lead to our brain picking up the pattern, and it's like, okay, well, I've seen this before enough times, so this is a thing, right? So I need to know what to do when I see this thing, or when I'm exposed to this thing. And that is why a lot of these people talk about repetition being... I was thinking about this earlier, and I wanted to expose this in the video, and there are several thoughts that are connected to it, so I don't want to go off on a tangent here, but one of the points that I was thinking about was that repetition is sufficient, although it takes longer, obviously. But then it is one thing that will help you reprogram your mind. If you consciously choose to, okay, I'm going to stimulate, I'm going to expose myself to this pattern of stimuli repeatedly, your brain will pick up on the pattern and then will absorb it and then will recognize it as a pattern or of how to react to the world in a certain way, right? And that's what learning is, basically. You're learning math, you're learning to play an instrument, you're learning a martial art, a language, whatever it is. Pattern, internalizing patterns consciously, usually through repetition. And sometimes there are certain techniques that you can use, like accelerated learning techniques, which go a shorter route that you don't have to repeat as much. You recognize portions of patterns that you already have internalized, and then you use those as like, okay, this is a building block that I can use here in this other situation. So that works too. And this is from my experience as a teacher, I've seen this work a lot. So that's one way. It takes longer, but it's like a fail-safe. It's like you can always fall back on it. You can always count on it as something that will, I want to change myself. I want to manifest something, whatever. I want to see changes in my life. Repetition will do it for you, but you have to be consistent. You have to be, you can't give up. Another thing that made me want to record this video, another thought about it, about this whole process, is a lot of these techniques, a lot of these frameworks, Silva method, Joe Dispenza, you name it, Neville, they always talk about, okay, going inside, like meditation, or the SATs that Neville talks about, the state akin to sleep, where you're supposed to be in a kind of a meditative state. You close your eyes, you relax, and all that stuff. And why is that? The brain is a pattern recognition machine. While we're connected to the outside world, we're constantly being bombarded by stimuli, and that stimuli is never neutral. Our brains are always like scanning for, okay, do I see a pattern here? Is this a pattern? Is this not a pattern? Oh, this is a pattern. I've seen it all the time. So we're like, while we're living in the world, in the 3D world, it's always the physical world, we're always being prompted to interact with the patterns that we see in it, right? It's all the time. So that's why a lot of these practices are like, okay, close yourself off from this as much as possible. So you diminish, visual sensory input, you go into a quiet place, so there's no auditory. You lay in a comfortable position, but then you have to be careful not to go too much so you drift off into sleep. So there's techniques for that too. But basically, close yourself off from the external sensory world so you can focus within. And then you're not setting off those patterns anymore, and then it makes it easier for you to work on the inside. So that's why, Silva method and whatever. So that's another thing. There was one more point I wanted to make. Let me look at my notes here. One more thing. Yeah, the main focus is change your internal subconscious patterns. That's why distancing yourself also from the situation which caused those negative patterns that you're trying to change is also useful, because then you're not setting them off. The more you set those off, the more you reinforce them. It doesn't mean they'll go away if you just stay away from them, but it does help. So that's another thing. Yeah, and basically I think what I just mentioned now, that's why people say to ignore the 3D when you're talking about manifestation or whatever. It's the same principle. So you're disconnecting from all this sensory input that is setting off all these patterns, all these old patterns, all the time. Your focus as a living human being is in your environment, so you have to interact with it. Your brain wants to, okay, what do I do here? All the time. So you disconnect from it, and that's why ignoring the 3D is a big thing in manifestation or whatever, because it's like, okay, this stuff that you're Your experience of reality is basically just a collection of all the patterns that you built up over the years, over your lifetime. That's your experience of reality. It's not reality itself. It's not the outside. Your experience is the patterns. That's what it is. You don't interact directly with the outside. So if you're changing, if you're working on personal change, you need to have this stance, this posture. No, posture is not a good word. Yeah, this basic philosophy or approach. There's a better word for it, but anyway, that what you see on the outside is, as they say, old news. It's a reflection of old assumptions. It doesn't represent the new you. You're still having. You're still going to have some remnants of the old patterns that you're trying to change. You're going to notice them. They don't just go away like that, or they might, but I mean, that would be like extreme situations like, I don't know, brainwashing or brain trauma or something like that. Because otherwise, it doesn't just go away like that. It's a learning process. So the old patterns are still there. And it's always better safe than sorry. So if they've worked so far, the brain tries to cling to them. And it's like, yeah, we've had these patterns so far and you're still alive, so let's keep those as something to fall back on. So while you're working on personal change, you will experience the old situations popping up, the old patterns, and that's normal. And that's why they talk about ignoring the 3D, because what you're ignoring actually is the old patterns that you're recognizing, that your brain is firing off as, okay, this is something I need to deal with in that way, which worked before, or which I'm familiar with, which is connected to survivability. If it's familiar, then it means it's something that you know how to deal with and you've dealt with before, and that's good for survivability. Not necessarily good for you, not necessarily good for your personal growth or for your happiness, but that's not what the brain is mainly focused on. It's mainly focused on survival. So that's why you will be tempted, and then I see a connection with some religious texts talking about big religious leaders being tempted, and that's how I see it. It's like the old patterns are still there trying to stay alive. It's almost like they're living entities, if you want to think of it that way. It's just a mental model. It's not anything important, but it's a good way to maybe think about them as like these patterns that want to stay alive because they were useful, or the brain wants to keep them, like I mentioned before, because they have survivability importance. So yeah. But so anyways, just summing up, you can change in basically two ways. The main focus is to change yourself internally, so that if you change your core identity, it changes a whole bunch of stuff. It changes like this whole ecosystem of things. So that would be one of the best ways to see major changes in your life, is to change how you feel yourself to be, because then everything sprouts from that, But it all sums up to changing your pattern recognition, changing the patterns that you have modeled inside your brain that you deal with on the outside, that tell you what to do, what to think about, how to feel, the labels that you put on things. And two basic ways to change that: it's either you shut yourself off from the outside, or repetition. You choose what it is that you want to change, and you just repeat it doggedly until you notice a difference. So it's like every time you're going to reach for a cigarette, no. You're going to reach for a cigarette, no. You're going to reach for a cigarette, no. And then you just practice that over and over and over again. And then, your brain just starts, that little circuit that used to go in the direction of picking up the cigarette goes into the direction of, no, avoidance. So yeah, that's some of the ideas I've been having. Thank you very much.